All right, g'day, hi, and welcome. Before anybody says anything, don't worry, I got a slipper under the heel joint so that the headstock is not on the ground at all. All right, so I figured to make some videos. I've got my mighty 7-string guitar here. You say, that's an 8-string, dude. Well, I got a broken string on there, so technically it's a 7-string. I'm at the point where my credit card, I got one guitar left to pay for in the drums, obviously. But it's my payments now, or my credit card debt's going to be low enough that I will be able to probably get some more guitars, maybe a double bass pedal, isolation headphones, and hopefully a newer camera for filming. But I don't know if I'll get it all this month coming. We're at the end of July. Today's been 6 months since I started playing the drums. And what else can I say? It's a lifelong journey when you learn an instrument, right? So the topic of this video is going to be a little bit sporadic, but it has to do with kind of songwriting in general and getting your music out and stuff like that. It's not easy to it's easy and it's not easy. It's easy to post anything you want, right? Which is great, but it's not easy to get out the top quality stuff in the manner in which it'll really stick to the wall and people take to it, right? So you have to kind of think about what you're going to put out and why. And the problem I have, it's not really a problem, but is I'm obviously a metal guy, predominantly, but I like a lot of different stuff. I do a lot of acoustic stuff. I do a lot of electric stuff, right? And it's hardest to do the electric stuff because you have to be able to do everything. So if you're, just a guitar player, so to speak, it's great. You can do all these riffs, but then you don't have the drums, you don't have this and do that. And digital is not always the way to go for everything. It works, but everything has its fine and its vice. The acoustic is not always the way to go. The downside to acoustic drums is you have to learn how to play them, right? So that takes time. And then you have to learn how to mic them and all that stuff. So making a good mixed, full song, with overdubs, double, like basically double track guitars and all that. For the metal guys, we have to pretty much double track our guitars. The non-metal guys can do it, but they don't really need to because they don't need those extremely wide sounding, gigantic Kongzilla sounding guitars, right? They can get away with less is more approach, where you just have the one guitar that your ears can really hone in on. Where when you do have one of the downsides to the double track guitar sound is clarity. The more as Ingve would say, more is more, and it's true, more is more, but also more clutters up. And if you are recording digitally, one of the biggest problems with digital is it's almost too perfect. Like, it sounds great, but it's almost too perfect. Where I'm not saying it lacks personality completely, but it's just time aligning everything can take a lot of style out. Some music requires that kind of tightness for sure. Other stuff, not so much, right? So, like pitch correction for vocals, or auto tune as they call it, is one of those things that I really can understand where you would use it, but I understand it gets used way too much. I was listening to a band the other night, band I never heard of before, and they were a Christian metal band. They were really cool, and I was listening, and there was something that sounded different, and I couldn't quite pick out what it was at first. And after the second verse or so, I was like, oh, okay, that's it. The girl basically, she didn't have, well, at least on that song anyway, her vocals were kind of clean, which sounded really different because everybody now has like like triple harmonies, quadruple harmonies, on their vocals all the time through the whole song, right? And it, again, you get a little bit too much on there, and and then you got double track guitars and everything like that, and it just the it started happening at the end of the '90s where the concept was if you just made everything really loud, it sounded better, and maybe to a degree that was probably what was called for, but now it just like if you listen to an Oasis album. Everything's just loud on it. You know what I mean? Like it's all like it sounds good, but everything is just okay. Just like put your chorus, stereo chorus, or delays or whatever. They don't really use a lot of delay, but the stereo chorus put it to the max. Put the volume of everything to the max, right? And it allows for even though they were more kind of like a live in the studio kind of band, very Beatles-ish, right? And Rolling Stones-ish. The problem they get is that everything's just so saturated with in stereo that you can't differentiate. Like it's just all one big chunk of volume coming at you. Where if you listen to like other stuff, say like for example older Jimi Hendrix stuff, which would be older because it's been a while since he's been around. Every time you listen to a Hendrix song, you hear something different each time because there's stuff that's a little bit subtle in there that you don't, it's not meant to stand out over, at equal volume with everything. So sometimes you get these weird, hey, what was that? Oh, hey, rewind, listen to it again. So rather than trying to make everything stand out, sometimes the subtle stuff in the background becomes more interesting because you have to listen to it a few times to hear it, and once you hear it, but then it's like there's just so many things that your ears get pulling your attention, so it's kind of like you almost can't focus on the song as a whole. It's almost like listening to an orchestra where like every section in the orchestra is something different, right? And so each time you listen you hear something different, so you can hear the overall song, but it's just like your attention can go to this, it can go to that, it can go to whatever. And when I'm listening to music, that's what I'm trying to usually do, is listen to hear what's not obvious. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like when you're listening to a song, it's like you hear the song, the second time you hear the guy's finger sliding on the strings, and it's like once you hear it once, you hear it every time, but it's like the first time you didn't catch it. You know what I mean? And that, or the way the vibrato against the fret wire and stuff like that. So things can get very interesting when you kind of take on more of a less is more approach. But how do you do less is more in metal? You know what I mean? Well, a good example of that would be like Iron Maiden, where they do live in the studio as well with a lot of their stuff, right? But the thing about that is they have 3 guitar players. So they have the double track guitar naturally, which in a sense is better because it's not so cluttered into the mix of just trying to put layers on top of layers. You know what I mean? Where it is a totally different instrument playing and you can record them all in real time. That's great. Now, mind you, when you're a one-man band, you can't do that. You can't, because you can't play all your instruments in the same time. So it's an interesting way of thinking about putting your songs together. Is, do you need it to be super, super large? But maybe if you just had, like, for example, and this is going to sound crazy, but let's say you have one guitar for the whole song, just the one guitar, and let the bass fill in the other side. And even for your lead breaks, like just no backing guitar on it. I bet you not too many bands are doing that right nowadays. You would sound like you're playing a 3-piece band live or something like that. And I do plan on recording that way and then letting the bass be the, the backing, you know what I mean? So for not every song, but I'm going to try it for a few songs and see how that comes in. So the guitar will really stand out. If you think about like Van Halen, for example, in the studio, they did a lot of stuff off the floor too, but then they had to put in the overdubs after for the, like the guitars, the rhythm guitar for the solos, right? But when Eddie Van Halen played live, which I was fortunate enough to see them, way back when in the 90s. And, like you still get this great sound. So, like, how are they able to pull it off live if they don't have that second guitar there? Same thing with the band Extreme and stuff like that. Like they write the songs so that they can be played, with whatever members of the band that's there, but that in the studio they just throw in extra just to fill out the song a bit more. So it's a little bit of a different take of writing songs, because like the actual, rhythm parts are, especially in, bands with one guitar player, the rhythm parts, where the solos are kind of more of an afterthought rather than the main thing, right? So it holds the song, you can write the song so it holds together better. But anyway, yeah, just kind of like a couple of ideas I had, just wanted to share. You guys tell me what you think.